Welcome back to another math video. We're going to take a break from our regularly scheduled programming on tricky algebra videos and go over isolating x. Now there's been a few issues on going from the basic algebra problems to the tricky algebra problems, and so I thought this would be a nice video to solidify, to both to review and to practice some of the earlier skills. This first problem I selected not because it's that hard, but because it demonstrates very nicely the concept of restoration, which is what the original word that algebra comes from, al-jabr, what in Arabic, what that means. So let's take a look at this problem. We have 2 times the square root of x minus 2 over 2 equals 4. We're literally going to undo everything. Just like in chemistry, we have electrons that are on the outside and easier to peel off, and then closer electrons to the nucleus that are harder to peel off. We're going to restore x little by taking care of the easier things first. So this 2 is the farthest thing away from the x. So we are going to undo the 2. So we're going to divide both sides by 2, or the way I like to think of it as moving the 2. So then we're going to get the square root part is equal to just 4 over 2, or just 2. Next we're going to undo the square root. So how do we undo a square root? We're going to square both sides. So we're just going to be left with x minus 2 over 2, and squaring 2 gets us 4. Now we're going to undo that 2, so we're going to move it over and multiply. So x minus 2 is just 8. We're going to undo the minus 2, so it's going to become a plus 2, so x equals 10. Okay, so this problem, again, is not meant to be necessarily a really hard problem. It just shows nicely how we're literally restoring x by undoing everything that's going on. All right, number 2. So number 2 is, what do you do when you have an x up top and x on the bottom in the denominator? That's kind of annoying, and in general, whether you have numbers or variables, we're just going to get rid of that by multiplying everything by x. So this times x is x squared, the 3 times the x is 3x, and the negative 2 over x times the x is canceled, and we just have the negative 2. So then we're going to move the negative 2 over, so we can get this quadratic equation, and then that factors nicely, hence why I designed that problem, and into x plus 1 times x plus 2 equals 0, and x equals negative 1 from here, or x equals negative 2. So again, if you see an x on the bottom, your first instinct should be multiply everything by x. Alright, here's another situation with x where it's a little confusing. So we have a regular x, but then we have a square root of x. So our first instinct might be, well, we already saw in problem 1, when you have a square root and you want to undo the square root, we should square. So let's try the sad face, which is something that may or may not work. So we're going to square everything, so the negative 2 becomes a 4. The left side expanded becomes this messy thing, and that has an x squared, a root x term, an x term. That's no good. So that doesn't mean the idea, that's why the sad faces are there. That doesn't mean the idea is no good, it just means that we don't want to square it as it is. So for a better approach, let's isolate this term. So we can either leave it on the left or move it to the right and move the negative 2 over. It's going to be the same thing. To be a little lazy and clever, I'm going to move this to the right and move the negative 2 over, because if we move this over, if we leave this as it is and we move the x over, we're going to have a lot of negatives. We're going to have a negative 2 minus an x, and I don't want to have to deal with all those negatives, but it's going to come out to be the same thing. So I'm going to move this to the right, so that's negative 3 root x. Move the negative 2 over, so that's x plus 2. Now we are going to do the same thing and square both sides. The difference is, this is by itself now, so it's not going to interact with other x terms. So we're going to have x plus 2 squared, which is going to be x squared plus 4x plus 4. Negative 3 root x squared turns out to be just 9x. And now we're just going to simplify this. So move the 9x over. X squared minus 5x plus 4 equals 0. And this can be factored nicely into x minus 1 times x minus 4 equals 0. The solutions to which are x equals 1 or x equals 4. Finally, one last thing. Make sure you check this in the original equation, because you may have made a mistake. But the second little pointer is, remember we squared everything at some point. So when you're squaring things, let's just say we had gotten negative 2. If you got negative 2 and you plug that in, then you'd have a square root of negative 2, which doesn't make much sense. So just make sure that your solutions make sense in the original equation by plugging them in. Always a good thing to do, and as a bonus, you check your work. Alright, so in these 3 examples, we've seen how you isolate x in slightly trickier situations than just a basic algebra situation. All right, I'll see you guys in the next few videos.